Hello, big game day here in Qatar with myself, Shaun, Custis and Charlie Wyett. England versus Wales tonight. Now, England have beaten Wales the last 6 times they've played them. You've got to go back to 1984 and the home internationals for the last time Wales won. Look that up, kids. Ask your mum and dad about home internationals. So, Charlie, we all expect an easy England victory. Wales weren't very good the other day. Neither were England, to be fair. Do you go with that? Nice and simple?
No,
Oh,
absolutely.
come on.
Absolutely no. I think it's going to be a struggle. Wales, even if they don't qualify, which we don't think they will, for them it will have been a decent World Cup if they beat England. I think ideally they'd have gone through, but if they can beat England, they'll go home reasonably happy. It'll be a tough match. Look at Scotland last year at the Euros. They really raised their game, made life difficult for England. It was a 0-0 draw at Wembley. So I'm expecting sort of a good old Premier League game, probably low on quality. I think it'll be exciting. I think it'll be really interesting. I think the atmosphere will be brilliant. So I'm looking forward to it.
England v Wales, though, as I say, 6 times, the last 6 occasions we've beaten them. You've got to go back so far. You're nearly in black and white for the last time Wales won. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, well, I don't think Wales will win. I just think it'll be a struggle, and it might be a sort of a 1-0. I mean, what do you think?
I think that traditionally there are the British and Irish battles. They haven't been rollovers, I would accept, although England did beat Wales 3-0 relatively recently. We heard in the press conference last night, Gareth Bale, we're perfectly capable of springing a shock. We've got class players. But you've got to say the likes of Bale, Ramsey, Joe Allen maybe, look past their best, I think. Don't you?
Yeah, I do, but it'd be typical of Bale just to deliver a moment of brilliance, to just make it uncomfortable. As I said, I think England will win. I think it'll be tight, and it'll be an opportunity maybe for 1 or 2 players that we've not seen start at the World Cup for England.
Well, there's been a few debates about that. First of all, should you leave Harry Kane out? Where are you on that one?
No, I think that obviously he hurt top of his foot. I think it was strange that he played as much as he did the other night. I thought maybe they should have changed it, but no, he'll be all right. I think we forget that most of these players, particularly Harry Kane, they're a lot of the time they're playing at 80% fit, aren't they, Shaun? 85%. Yeah. So I don't think that's a real problem. There's obviously the big debate: is Foden? Would you start him?
Personally, no. I see the argument. We're talking to Jack Wilshere for our paper. He loves Foden, but he worries that players like him could get a little bit lost in a what he called a Premier League team against a Championship team in a third-round FA Cup tie. They might get lost in that heat of battle, and he thinks you're probably better off going with the old traditional style. But a lot of people understand the clamour for Foden, but I think as you've made the point, he hasn't really done it for England in his 19 internationals. Nothing.
He's had
exceptional.
2 or 3 great games. That's it. And he's a great player. I'd like to see him start a World Cup match, but equally I don't think this is the game for him, and equally I don't think it's the game for Jude Bellingham. If, as expected, he makes way for Jordan Henderson, I don't think there'll be people.
They roll their eyes.
They were even on social media yesterday. They were all getting a bit mad about it, but ultimately Jude Bellingham, brilliant first game, not so good the other day.
Yeah.
And he's all right. He's played for Birmingham when he was 16. That brilliant breakthrough season, but he's not actually used to a game like this because he's never had a sort of a what's effectively a local derby at this level.
Yeah.
Because he plays in Germany, obviously.
Yeah.
He's had German matches, of course, but I think Henderson, calm head. Again, people get on his back, although he's not at his peak. I think he's a good player to have in a game like this.
There's always a massive Raheem Sterling debate as well, isn't there? But Gareth Southgate, if there's one player he puts total faith in, maybe apart from Harry Maguire, it's Sterling.
Yeah, and that Harry Maguire and Raheem Sterling, I think you're right. A lot of people wouldn't have them in the team. They were both in the Euro 2020 team of the tournament with Kyle Walker, and they're generally done well for England. I think Sterling's more hit and miss at times. Yeah. I didn't think he played particularly well the other night, but most of them didn't, did they really? So I'll be amazed. I think actually he might not start tonight. I think Southgate might look to change things up, but keep Kane, of course. So it'll be interesting.
In the press conference, there was a lot of a debate about whether we get too high when we're winning 6-2 and too low when we only draw. And I think Southgate over the years has got used to, let's say, blocking out the noise around that and being his own man and just thinking ahead to the next game, not worrying maybe too much about what people were saying after the USA game.
Well, after the 6 Nations League games, before the start of the Nations League game, majority of football fans didn't care about it. Then when we didn't win any of the games, everyone wants Southgate to be sacked. Even though Germany had only won 1 in 7, France had only won 1 in 7, Spain had been patchy. And, you know, he had players who were knackered. He had a team that with players out of form in the Nations League. And then, of course, they take out Iran, and you know, all of a sudden we're going to win the World Cup. So
well, you said that, to be fair.
Yeah, we did. Well, I think that we could win the World Cup, but equally, I wasn't being as critical after the Nations League games because I don't think they mattered. So I think Southgate keep the team level-headed, but they're still dreaming big, and I don't think they're going to worry too much about the States. Look, 4 points after 2 games in the World Cup. 8 years ago, we'd already been knocked out of the World Cup in Brazil after 2 matches. We were there, weren't we? And yeah, it was dreadful. And of course, 2016, humiliated by Iceland. I thought it was really interesting the other day. Of all the comments we've had from an England player, I thought Marcus Rashford, who is a good talker but often doesn't say very much, to give Gary Neville and Roy Hodgson a real dig in the ribs by effectively saying that training was a shambles and it wasn't very good. It's quite unusual to get quotes like that from an England footballer, isn't it? It's clearly an issue with him, by him saying that he was unimpressed with the training and how much higher the levels are now. I thought that was really interesting. But both it was a plus for Southgate and pretty insulting for Roy Hodgson.
Well, actually, Wilshere in our World Cup promotion night gave that great story about how Hodgson's had let Pirlo have the ball. His legs have gone. He was the best player on the pitch. And I mean, Wilshere as well talked about the fact the video, which there's been a lot about it, the celebration video that Wales did when England got knocked out by Iceland. That was actually Wilshere's last England game, and he said he was raging about it. Luke Shaw has alluded to the fact that it wasn't very nice, and Southgate smiled when he said, has he been showing the video to the England players? Do you feel it really will be a big motivating factor?
Oh, 100%. There's obviously a big screen at the team hotel by the beach in Al Wakra, and they've watched it, and I'm sure they'll see it again today. 100% that will fire them up, 100%. And I thought it was really disrespectful from the Welsh team. You have to look at it again, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend to have a look, because it's not a 10-second celebration. It goes on for ages, and they're all involved. And I was really surprised that actually the Welsh players, particularly players like Aaron Ramsey, who at the time were playing for big clubs at Arsenal, were not getting stick by the English crowds. And I think the reason was because England was so bad, we were still cheesed off with sort of the English team that would embarrass themselves. But it was it was a lot of the players were unimpressed. There's about 7 of the squad that are here now that were there then. So they'll be giving a reminder to the younger players, and that'll be. I think that could see, hopefully, England get off to a good start.
For the first time in a long time, I've actually detected the Welsh team getting a little bit of stick from their press and media, who traditionally have been carried along by a bit of wave of euphoria for the last few years. But now there are a few questions about them. You know, what you're doing, that wasn't a very good performance. It is a bit strange, isn't it, for them to be getting a bit of a kicking? Yeah,
they've waited all this time to actually get here, and it's negative. But then I guess they'll feel that they should have done a bit better against Iran and the United States. I think the other thing is, Scottish fans who obviously were in those playoffs must be kicking themselves, thinking, how are we not here? How are Wales there and not us? Why did we lose to Ukraine? It must be quite difficult for them, because I actually think Scotland were the best team of those teams in the playoffs. And Wales have obviously got through deservedly and not been very good.
Yeah, we alluded to this the other day, but Tony Adams in the Sun's been saying you should still be looking ahead to playing France, and you said you can't pick your teams, you can't be sure who you're playing, but that game still sort of looms there. I know there's a potentially tricky one in the last 16. But that must still be on their minds, that possible quarter-final, because it could all come to an end there, possibly.
Yeah, it could do, but equally, England could be knocked out in the last 16 if they play like they did against the States. And France could be knocked out by the last 16.
Were they particularly bad against the States?
No, they were. I thought 15 minutes, don't you? I mean, it wasn't the worst
point. I mean, it's okay. You know, taking the point, it was like get it and get out, wasn't it? Really. So maybe we're a little bit hard on them.
Yeah, yeah. It was a 6 out of 10 performance, not a 4 out of 10. Whereas the Iran one was a 9 out of 10.
Wise words, Charlie. So on England will be going to the last 16. We're very confident of that. Wales, you're on your way home.